Hi, it's Jessie. I'm back again, and I've been making videos about judgment, right? So why don't you want to be a judge? Well, it's been said that when the wicked rule, that the judges are blind, right? And I'm not just talking about the people. I'm talking about like the actual judges, where if you had a dispute with someone, you'd go to these judges and they'd handle things for you. And I think that I understand this bit of scripture better than anyone else, because I get how the narrative is floated around, how like the devil, he plays a long game, how they abuse people in positions of authority to float their narrative in front of, like it's no secret I was disabled out when I was young. I received survivor's benefits. Okay, I spent like most of my adolescence in institutions, right? It wasn't because I was court mandated there, but that's the narrative that people will spread out there. I already revealed to you, in junior high, people spit in my face, for no reason. Just walking through the hallway, tap me on my shoulder, I turn around and they lift their tongue up, and that, what they call gleet, comes out right in your face. In high school, I was on crutches. People kicked my crutches out from underneath me, made me fall, and then mocked me and called me a gimp. People were really cruel to me, like my entire life. There was no justice for me. There was just people targeting me and me having to tolerate it. And I'm not playing the victim, right? I'm saying that, when you have this covenant with God and he puts a target on your back, you know, when he says suffer for him, he trains you up, and so that one day you can endure the beast that you're going to face. He makes you strong by hitting you. It's hard. I wouldn't have been prepared for the life that I had to face now if I hadn't gone through what I had gone through then. So I don't see it as being a victim. I see it as my training ground, where I was prepared for what I had to face, right? So, but we get how they take like a crumb of the truth. She spent her adolescence in institutions, right? Because I was hiding from the world, because I was sad, because I was broken, because I didn't understand why people hated me. And not just in my family, because I got out of my family and people still hated me. I it causes, when we're young, we develop socially. We develop socially in relationships to the people around us. And if this was my development, which way do you think it was sending me? I wasn't the one who became evil because I was beat. I became lame. I spent my life in institutions. So when they want to build their case against me now, they go back and they say, she was court ordered there. I was never court ordered anywhere. I've never been arrested. I've never been in front of a judge for something that I have done outside of like a traffic ticket. Um, and even then, it's been decades since I've gotten a traffic ticket. I think the last one I had was like 2006 for speeding, on a highway, going 73 in a 65. Bad me. I do have that lead foot occasionally, when I'm in a hurry. So, um, regardless, I broke the law. I paid my fine, you know. Um, but but to say that my institutionalization when I was young was court ordered is preposterous. And really, no one can go back and check their facts. They can't go back and check their story. Why? Because the juvenile records are sealed. So they are covered through the immunity of a juvenile in our nation, right? And so when we have this, then it's not so hard for them to go around me and to put these ideas in people's head. She's been arrested. We have her fingerprints on file. No, 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 no. You have my fingerprints on file because I substitute taught in schools, and everyone who works in a school gets fingerprinted. Never been arrested. But you see how they play with the narrative when they hold positions of power. And then they get other people, meaning anyone close to you. They told Delilah that I was arrested, okay? This is the narrative that they put on him when they wanted to flip him against me, that I was arrested, that I was promiscuous, that I cheated on him when he was gone. Um, he was sentenced to 30 years in jail when, after he told me, get an abortion and left me when I was pregnant. He got a 30-year sentence. I was 22 years old. I was trying to move on with my life. You know, I had a child. And first of all, go back to the root. It wasn't, I was in love with him, but he was there. I was a quote unquote booty call gone bad, and he told everyone this, and so people treated me this way, in his family, because they control the narrative. It wasn't I got taken advantage of, but I was still willing to allow his family to be part of the kid's life because family is important to me. It had nothing to do with my character. It had to do with I'm a gold digger. They never gave me anything. It had to do with I put my kids on people. I wouldn't leave my children with them. His mother gave me bad advice about giving my son NyQuil to sleep. And from that bad advice, I didn't trust her to keep my child. It was a very rare occasion when I had to depend on them, when my son, my oldest son, was small. It's crazy the narrative that they come up with versus what truth looks like, and they just keep building on these things and twisting facts and then going out around you and telling stories about you so that everywhere you go people treat you as though you're someone you're not. And so they're creating this narrative. They're hedging you in. So when you go in front of the judge, because when they stripped away my benefits, I did appeal their decision. I did appeal it, and I was convinced that I couldn't live without these benefits until I realized that the benefits gave the devil place in my life, because this is why they ran around me like this. This is why the authority used their power to ruin my reputation and strip away these benefits. Because like Trump said, we're only going to go after the criminals, but they make people look like criminals. They tweak the narrative, they hedge you in, they cripple you completely. Someone with a disability can still go to work if they're in a supportive environment. If they're in an environment where people aren't kicking their crutches out from underneath them, if they're in an environment where they're not targeted with bullying, if they're not sexually harassed, they can work if you don't make it too hard. I worked as a substitute teacher part-time. I could handle the part-time work. Being on Social Security, I was allowed to work. You know, I was allowed to work. We can make up to $900 a month working part-time. That was perfectly legal. I wasn't creating any fraud, I wasn't acting in fraud when I worked in the schools and when I was on Social Security, because it was part-time employment. But they tweak these narratives. They tweak these narratives and they make people look as though they're someone that they're not. They tweak these narratives. And then you have no reference for when they stop beating you. You have no reference to go back out in the world. Everybody has you locked down as a drunk, drug addict. I don't drink. I was never drunk. I was always a one drink kind of girl. I've never done drugs in my life. This new one that they're putting on me, that I go on cruises. Really? You're sitting in a high position of power and you have the ability to check things out, and you never check to see, do I have a passport? I've never had a passport in my life. How am I going on a cruise? I don't think you can get on a cruise ship without a passport, can you? They dock in other countries, right? And you have to have a passport, right? I don't have one, so why would you believe this lie? Why would you spread this lie to people to make me look like I'm the welfare queen? Because that's the image that they're trying to paint of me. They're trying to make me look like I'm the welfare queen. When they play with my email, because I don't have a phone. I haven't had a phone in years, you know. They they target me too much when I have a phone. So I make myself unavailable and I keep everything in email. But my daughter, she sometimes calls me for a ride from school. And I don't always get the email. It doesn't come through. And I sit there with my phone on refresh every 5 minutes, checking to see, because I know it's time for her to come home. And just like 2 weeks ago, it was like she came in and she was like, Mom, didn't you get my email? And then all of a sudden it pops up. And the email she had sent it like more than 20 minutes before that, you know? They play with the timing of your messages. They play with your alarms. You know, they send people in. They send my neighbors to stalk me. I walk my dog, and I'm seeing my neighbors circle around me. I'm like, what the crap is wrong with these people? Like, absolutely, positively, what is wrong with these people? Is it because I say I walk my dog? Everyone knows this is not my dog. This is my son's dog. My son moved into an apartment because he couldn't get a house, even though, you know, he makes more than $60,000 a year and he's been on a job for 3 years. He couldn't get a house because they told him that they wanted him to put $100,000 down on a property. What bank wants someone to put half the mortgage down when the kid has a 780 score and he's been on the job for 3 years and he makes more than $60,000 a year? You know, what kind of junk is this? This is harassment about me. This is denying my son opportunity because they're targeting me, right? So my son, he moved into an apartment. I keep the dog. It's not my dog, but I take care of her. You know, when I walk my dog, what's the narrative that you're spooling? Are you saying that nothing is wrong with me? Let me grab my shoe real quick. Let me show you something. This is my shoe. You remember I told you about it? See how it curves out here in the form of a C? Now, let me put it this way. Do you see where it's coming apart at the seams? Because my foot falls out the side of it. Because it curves like a C. So when we say there's nothing wrong with me, you see how my feet curve in the same fashion that my son's feet curve? And they've been this way all of my life. And no, I don't usually wear cloth shoes. But I bought these for my daughter. And her feet were grown larger than them. Her feet are larger than mine. So I kept the shoes because I got them for like $5. So I wear them. Plus my other shoes were broken. So you wear what you gotta wear. When they're following me, what's the narrative that they're saying? What they can visibly see? You know, what they can attest to? When I was hobbling, when my legs were so stiff that I couldn't move and they were following me with a video camera, I turn around and see her kids following me with a video camera and running when I turn around. When you do this kind of thing, you know, you create a narrative. You're taking pictures to prove what you say, right? You have no idea what I'm suffering from. You're just accusing me of being a faker. You're following me. You're stalking me. This should be illegal. I asked the police to make it stop one time, and they were like, well, don't go out. They were like, put up a higher fence. You know, they were like, lock yourself in. We can't do nothing about that. Actively stalking me all the time. But you see, they get away with it because they're serving an authority, probably them, and they get away with it. Never mind that, you know, you need warrants. You don't need warrants if the neighbors are volunteers. Never mind that I have rights. I have a right to a fair trial. I have a right to see a doctor and not have them say that I'm faking when I'm in so much pain that I can't move, you know? My shoes, the curvature on my shoes should demonstrate for you a little bit of the pain that I get in my legs, you know? And sometimes the curvature is more extreme. Sometimes I wear, I want to say solid sneakers, supportive sneakers, you know, usually that don't allow for the turning, you know? And I can't always wear them when I wear them because they hurt my feet. Sometimes my feet, it's like the muscles in my feet collapse and my toes just spread out like fingers. I don't know what it is with my feet, but it does this. So when you have people watching me, you know, when you tell me that I have this condition, but then you test it out and then you say I'm faking, but you're not even noticing that, hey, she's really suffering, you know? When you have things like this where there's like visible evidence from like just my shoes are only like a couple months old, right? when there's when there's visible evidence, that you don't even have to examine me. Just look at my stinking shoe when I take it off and see how they curve. It's like people will believe the testimony of two witnesses over the truth. And when these witnesses are out here like this, it's like they're assassins. It's like they're assassins with like no recourse. They have no consequence. They have no limit to what they can do. I told you about how they vandalized my porch when I called out the teacher for gaslighting, right? I told you about the footprints in the snow when my car would break down all the time. And one time I went outside and there were footprints leading up to the front of my car from the snow, and someone had been underneath my hood. They had gone back out the same way, never to my house, never from my house. Someone was tampering with my car. Years earlier, there was an accident with my car where I had just had my brakes done, and a week later, the brakes failed. And it made me think back to way back when, because I had brakes initially when I came out of the service station. They were brand new. I had brakes, and did someone tamper with the brakes? Because when my car went in to get repaired, they said the brakes were not connected at all. Someone tampered with my car. You target me in this way, and I have no help. I have no defender. I have no recourse. But if I were to get in this accident, I'd automatically be put to blame. I'd automatically be called a scammer. Heaven forbid that I be hurt in it. The way that they do things, they make accidents happen. They make things happen, and then they control the narrative around them. So when you think that you're going to go before a judge and find justice, you're not. Justice is blind here. They can't see around the witnesses, and the witnesses are floating a narrative, and they feel justified on their narrative based on your history, but your history is a bunch of twisted up lies and facts, twisted, little crumbs of truth, big lies around them, twisted, you understand? And they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming at you. So when the wicked rule, you see, the judges are blind. They're going to do whatever, the authority presents before them. And it's not fair. It's not right. It's like state-sanctioned murder is what it is. Because, no, they don't take your breath, but they most certainly do take your life. And it's for this reason that I'm like, man, I don't even want Social Security back. Look what y'all do to strip away somebody's benefits, Maybe at some point in time, God will lift me up high. He'll give me a vision and I'll be able to come back to life again, maybe. But it's like, I'm sitting in this hole dead. I'm sitting in this hole dead while they run around and do all this stuff, right? While they control all the narrative. I'm sitting in this hole dead, and when I tell them, you've made me into a slave, they switch it up. They switch it up, and they call me a housewife. And so they call me a housewife, and then when that's not working out, because, no ring finger, never been a ring on that finger, never been married in my life, kind of hard to call me a housewife. That narrative doesn't work, So now I'm a hoarder, or not a hoarder, a squatter, one of these people who sit in territory and refuse to move. But that isn't true either, because y'all are still working this narrative around me to lock me in. So where am I supposed to go, So then they tell me move. And tell me to move. I have no money. I don't have a working vehicle, really. Yeah, the van will drive, but it needs like 3 grand worth of work. It can only go short distances. Eventually, that steering is going to go out. It needs a rack and pinion, you know. The oil is leaking. The van is not getting us far. And what am I supposed to do? Oh, their suggestion for me is to put a bed in my van and convert it into a camper and live outside. This is their suggestion for how I'll be restored. You know, go be homeless and live in your van. Go be homeless and live in your van until the time in which, my plates expire and I can't get them renewed because I don't have an address, and my van gets towed away and impounded because it has no valid plates. I rack up a lot of tickets. So you want me, in order to be restored, go live in my van so we can make life even more harder than it is, with a roof over my head, you know. These people. Oh, and then they tell me, go be a nurse. They've been pushing me to be a nurse. They had bishops say a long time ago that I always wanted to be a nurse, but I wasn't smart enough. Wrong, liar. I never wanted to be a nurse. I have the utmost respect for nurses, but Jesse, don't do bodily fluids. Yeah, I like to watch Dr. Pimple Popper occasionally, occasionally, because it's soothing to, I don't know, it's weird. But I don't want to do that work myself. I don't have the stomach for it, okay? Not only that, I can't do the lifts, It's not something that I want to be. And it's got nothing to do with intelligence. It's just not something that I wanted to be. I wanted to be a counselor. That's why I went to school and got my undergrad in psych and my master's in social work. I wanted to be a counselor. I wanted to have a community program, a community outreach program with recreational activities and things like that. But they crippled me in everything that I wanted to do, And now as I look at the field, I'm like, y'all are a bunch of Nazis. Look what you've done to me. Look how you abused your power and coordinated the attacks against me. This is trash. I don't want to be one of you. I don't want to be one of you and give you credit for my good work. I don't want any part of you. I don't want no relationship with you. You're not somebody that can be trusted. You work on agendas and make lies look like truth. I don't want any part of you. You weaponize ignorant people into an army, When we say don't judge or you will be judged, that judge in the beginning who I reference, he's blind, right? Because the wicked rule. But the people are blind as well. Everyone that they use, they were fed a story. The Milgram experiment, where they learn that they can move people if they can tarnish the reputation of the person. Or they can move people if just simply a person of authority asks. Or they can move people if it's like part of a test or an experiment or a case. They can move people, and they do move people, So it's not just the judges who sit up high, it's my neighbors around me, the ones stalking me, the ones substantiating lies, It's everyone. They're sitting as my judge to say these things are true. But let me ask you, if someone says my kid eats tacos and she's never eaten tacos in her life, and then you take her out to Taco Bell, because she wants to be part of the group, she goes along. Now you're substantiating your lie about my kid eating Mexican food, when she doesn't, and that's a silly lie. That's just a stupid lie, because there's nothing wrong with eating Mexican food. Me and my daughters, we just don't. Me and my sons, we just don't. We don't like Mexican food. We don't like cumin. We don't like the spice, We have a different palate, I like European foods more, But this is how they substantiate their case. They send these kids in, they send these kids in blind. They are using the kids to make their case against me. Kids don't know what they're on, but they're being appointed as a judge. Does she like going to Taco Bell? Well, we've been twice, so yeah. Well, what'd she order when we go to Taco Bell? She had nachos the first time, but she didn't like them. They were pretty disgusting. So next time she had some kind of potato. Taco Bell has potatoes now. I have no idea what that is. But she says that's not so bad, But you substantiate some detail here, not knowing what it means. You just come in because you judge this as a righteous path, because some person position of authority told you, and you want to either prove this lie or disprove this lie, whatever the case is, it doesn't matter. You've now exploited this child, and this relationship that could have been a beautiful friendship can never be, because they're going to go hide their face in shame when they're done, maybe ruin my daughter's reputation so that nobody knows the evil they've done, because this is the way that the world works, and it should not work this way. You know, when you judge, when you sit in these positions, there's these rules in Torah. You know, Moses said, appoint judges at your gates. So where's our gates in America? Our gates are in the classroom, right? The education system. Our gates are in the employment system. Our gates are in our military. Our gates are along our borders. You know, we have lots of gates. Our gates are within our family, our siblings. Our gates are within our family, our children, our parents, you know. And the enemy is always trying to attack at the gates, to turn the gates against the one that they're supposed to be guarding against this kind of injustice, you know. It's ridiculous. Now, why shouldn't you judge? Judge not unless you be judged. Well, it's important to understand that when Moses said, put them on the gates, they were judging from a law. They were judging from Torah. And they weren't just knocking people out, because Torah gives you time. As long as you're studying Torah, judgment is withheld. It's deferred from you with Jewish people. You know, it's deferred from you so that you can have time to improve your character and become a better person by learning, you know. So when the judge is here and he says, oh, no, we're settling this dispute, it's not to take anything away from people. The judge is to maintain the peace in society, you know, to make sure that things are settled justly and fairly, you know. The judge is not a point of attack for the people. You know, it's not something that should be weaponized. And they say, well, make the judges rich so then the judges can't be bribed. Here we don't do that. Here we make the judges poor. In our classrooms, our teachers, our doctors, you know, our nurses. Here we deprive them of income. Well, not so much nurses anymore, because they make a lot more money than someone doing like labor, you know. But we deprive them, and we make them hate the world around us, you know, hate the world around them, make them judge, constantly judge other people to say what's fair, what's not fair, who deserves this, who doesn't deserve this. So when they got their judgment all mangled like this, where they're judging from their own heart and putting labels on people that don't belong to the people, but rather it's a reflection of their toxicity, you know, because they've been groomed in this way. They've been indoctrinated, you know. Then we're not judging the people as a judge, but rather you're an appointed assassin, you know. This was a Nazi play. This was what they did back then, right? The things that they do, it blows me away. If you don't learn to be a judge within the law, learn certain standards, procedures, the purpose of justice, if you don't understand the value of life and how it must be protected, how you must be responsible for not just your judgment, but what you believe, how they say judgment, a thing can be established on 2 witnesses, right? Well, you've also got to be responsible enough to know when the attack is coordinated. And this is part of the reason why when you catch people coordinating an attack, conspiracies, they get a harder, harsher punishment, because it makes it corrupts judgment. It puts out the judge's eyes so that no one can see. And justice is something that has to be protected. Above all else, you know, they can sway your opinion this way or that way. That person's a crook, that person's not a crook. That person deserves another chance, that person deserves to die. They can sway you back and forth all day. But if you're smart, you won't get in that seat, because you understand that a judge, there's a thin line between a judge and an assassin, a murderer. And you want to be real careful not to be the murderer. You have to be responsible for all that stuff. Don't get in it. Yeah, my life is a big mess, but my life is a big mess because people are pulling all kinds of strings at every angle around me, at every level, every relationship I have. They are trying to get to me through them, and it's freaking ridiculous. And it's not a reflection of who I am because Mama's quiet. Mama does the laundry. Mama cleans up after the kids. Mama washes the dishes. Mama makes dinner. Mama, makes breakfast. Mama packs the lunches. Mama, Mama bakes cookies because the kids like my cookies. Remember, I get my car fixed for cookies. They're really good. You know, Mama stays busy with things that Mama has to do. You know, I don't take this stuff out on my kids, and I also don't teach my kids about this stuff. Why? Because I know if I put my kids in the middle of the fight that I'm going through with their schools, then they're going to get a label smacked on them that says they have a behavior disorder. They're going to attack my kids. So it's best for me to let them exploit my children because I'm strong enough to remain upright and call them out on what they're doing. And it's best for Mama to fight the battle. Mama's not petty. Mama's not an assassin. Mama is saying what's happening. And Mama's not saying you need to die. Mama is saying you need to stop. All right? We're past our time, so I'm going to let this go there and say, have a good day. God bless.